Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and we debut a new podcast at DannyClinkscale.com and the Reasonably Irreverent podcast today, a series you will hear periodically here, and we'll see where we take this. It is Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jayne. It's kind of a couple's riff on just about everything. A lot of times we're going to do reviews of movies we have seen. That's what this one is going to be about. Other times we attend concerts together, we go to restaurants together, we live life together. We have ideas that are disparate and ideas that are simpatico.
So, boy, do we know how to banter.
Yes, we do know how to banter, and we're both supposed to be trained professionals in this type of thing. Jayne with a background as a singer and now as the owner of Venice Communications, and that's a communications business, obviously, and sometimes assists and helps out people in communicating better and telling their stories. And we're going to be kind of telling our stories during this about stories and about movies and about books and about things we care about and about things that we think that you will care about as well. Today we'll look at women's empowerment through the eyes of two movies set about 150, more than that, years apart. One during the Civil War, one a contemporary story. Two recent movies, Bombshell and Little Women, and there's a strain of women's empowerment through both of these.
Oh, it was fascinating. Greta Gerwig did a phenomenal job of rearranging the timeline in Little Women. The energy level was amazing. And then Bombshell, wow. Fantastic performances, which we'll discuss.
Absolutely, and it is our first edition of Reconcilable Differences. It's right here at the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast for this week on Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300.
Hey guys, it's Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, and Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, I've got a bunch of buddies coming over to watch the big game, and I need some ideas on what to cook.
Hey, let me handle it, Brian.
You're going to come over and cook for us?
For you? Maybe. But you should just let 23rd Street Brewery cater it. We could bring a big pan of Bill Self mac and cheese, wings, veggies, naked nachos, and anything else you might want.
Great. Well, you want to stick around and watch the game?
No, I've got to get back to the brewery and watch it on the big screen.
The place to get great catering and watch all the games, the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back to Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jayne, and this week's edition, this particular edition, is about two women's movies. They're not women's movies. Actually, there's been a big discussion about Little Women, and some people, columnists and the like, have complained about the fact that boys and men are not going to see Little Women, and then some other people on the other side are saying, well, they have no obligation to go see a movie about a story about girls. But I guess the issue is that a coming of age story about a boy or boys is something that maybe is seen as something for everyone, where in some cases, somehow in this particular venue, that a story about young girls is seen as something for girls. I don't know if that's a controversy, but it has been raised, certainly.
I maybe think one reason of that might be going on is partly, when it was actually taking place in the Civil War. And so maybe it's hard to understand, what maybe there's an assumption that women didn't have the feelings and the aspirations that they actually did. And that's what's so great about this film, because it's actually the kernel of the fire that has taken off ever since then, about the women's movement and women's abilities and women's right to break free of conventions.
And the real overarching message of this is through the eyes of Jo, the lead character played by Saoirse Ronan, and she is absolutely brilliant. Did she win the Academy Award? She was at least nominated for Brooklyn, I know that. But good performances all around, but she certainly is the centerpiece of it, and she is the character who has the most ambition in a restricted society where basically the character that's played, obviously, by Meryl Streep is really one that wants to insist or strongly suggest to the daughters that marrying well is really the only particular avenue for young girls. Jo, basically rebels against that completely. The other of the two sisters who has the biggest part of the story is Florence Pugh as Amy March, and she's the one who will go off to Paris and sort of pursue that. But that story and that restriction is, it's true. I mean, basically what Meryl Streep as Aunt March is saying is the reality of the day, that except for being maybe a teacher, there's really no avenue for true success and true economic success for a young lady except for marriage.
You know what was really amazing to me, and I don't think I'm giving anything away. Most people know the story, but the way they depict how Jo finally fiddles with her own storyline for the book, she accepts the fact that she's going to have to make some adjustments in life to get at least to the place where she was able to get, which is where she became one of the most famous female writers of all time. Who would ever guess that it would come from such a poignant and honest look at her life with her sisters? And one thing I must say, as a sister myself of only one other sister, she really hit the mark on the head on all these kinds of little game playing things that go on, but was fabulously told in a very unique way. And what was very interesting is the pivotal character of, what was his name, Danny?
Laurie.
Yeah. I mean, fantastic acting there. And he laced in the fact that each one of these girls had unique capabilities, and we were seeing this through his eyes. And to me, that's where guys need to go see this movie and see how he reacts to these women. That's how you need to react to women.
This movie is filled with great performances, and that one, Theodore Laurie Lawrence, who becomes a love interest of multiple of the sisters during the course of the film, is played by Timothée Chalamet, and he has been great in multiple films now and is emerging as one of the best young actors. And in my mind, he really made the film. Now, there were, like I said, Saoirse Ronan as Jo, Emma Watson as Meg, Florence Pugh as Amy. The younger daughter didn't have as much to do, but was an important character, Beth, who was, in the end, a sickly figure. She was played by Eliza Scanlon. And Laura Dern is the strong mom, who was fabulous in this film. But linking it all together, as you mentioned, and seeing the girls' characters and really the worldview and the disappointment from his standpoint of dealing with the worldview of Jo and the other characters was Laurie, and Timothée Chalamet is just a star.
You know what's interesting in this to me is any of the other versions that I have seen, like that one with Peter Lawford, lovely to look at, but they did not lace his character in the way Greta did in this to show the value that these women bring to the earth through his eyes. That was a brilliant stroke of genius on her part. So I think something to think about if you're going to this film.
She obviously is an emerging filmmaker. She made her big splash in Lady Bird, which I didn't see and you did see. The movies are different, but they do have a storytelling aspect about women, and I would imagine that that's probably going to be something that she minds on a regular basis.
Well, honest dialogue. I have to say this, truth in storytelling, as if you're right in the room with them. It was maybe heightened pace of the dialogue, but in the end, you still felt like everyone was true to their characters as if it were happening at that very moment, which is really hard to do, especially for a period piece now. Even Florence, who I wasn't quite sure about at the beginning of this, she unveiled herself as an extremely likable and understandable character, having always been sort of in the shadow of Joe, but then coming out, you just almost saw this teeter-totter effect of who was going to play the power against the other one.
Because as the young girl, the oldest daughter is Meg, and she would go on to a more conventional life, regret it a little bit, but seemingly want to embrace being married, even though her husband would be a not so well-to-do school teacher. But Amy was the girly girl of the bunch, or at least she was the one as a young girl who cared so much about what she looked, and she was like doing things like pinching her nose to make sure it didn't grow to a different way, and how her knees looked.
There's probably more Amy's in the world now than anything else. I hate to say it, especially with the way people want to look. Yeah, I kind of felt like maybe of all the characters that weren't as far developed, Amy's might have been a little bit more developed, but it was hard because Joe, takes the scene, and the character was fantastic. The scenes were phenomenal. The pacing was great. The only thing is, I felt sometimes maybe this is part of it. There's a sadness to this. Maybe it's partly because of the younger daughter, and that is a major pivotal moment in this movie. And I don't want to give it all away, but I just think it's uplifting, and yet there's also a poignancy to it.
Well, there certainly are disappointments for people in this film. The father goes off to war. The mother clearly has had some frustrations in her life, which she expresses, but has come through them and has sort of hidden her frustration from her daughters in a very effective way. But there are also great small characters, and a not so small one is Chris Cooper, unrecognizable to me throughout the film, as Mr. Lawrence, who is seemingly what we can all identify, I think, from childhood is the mean old man who lived next door, who in the end turns out to be anything but. And he was really a great small character in this film. Oh my
God, the whole scene, where he ends up giving his piano to the youngest daughter because she is the one that loves music so much, and he's doing it out of the love for his daughter that he lost. So there's a lot of discussion and background about loss in this movie, and obviously the text of her book. But Greta has really torn this thing up and twisted the plots around to meld as far as timing, and I think that's
the movie is done in basically two sections. It's not, and they're not two sections; they're interrupted with each other. But the two storylines are 7 years apart. And when the girls were younger, and maybe early teens to younger than that, and then when they were growing into young ladyhood later on, or womanhood, and at first I found it a little bit jarring, the back and forth, but you do get into the rhythm of it. The scenes are shot a little bit differently. The modern scenes, the scenes of contemporary life, it was during the 1860s, were shot with a sort of a more straightforward focus, softer focus to the shooting of the memory pieces as well. The movie looks very good, but eventually it was not jarring, and it was a very effective way to tell the story, I thought.
What a wonderful moment to have this this story come out again by such a young, vibrant director who has so many great things to offer. I was frankly shocked that she was not nominated for a Golden Globe. I'm just going to say that 10 million times over. It's really shocking to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, there's only 5 nominations for Best Director, and now they've moved it can be up to 10 for Best Picture in the Academy Awards. And sometimes it is difficult in those cases that the 5 directors who were nominated for a Golden Globe all did outstanding work. But being nominated, I mentioned earlier that did she win? Did Saoirse win for Brooklyn? I believe she did. But even if she didn't, even as much of a cinema buff as I am, I always remember when people are nominated for an Academy Award, but a lot of times I don't remember if they won. And a lot of times I don't think it really matters if they won or not. I think the nomination is the thing. So that's why it is kind of a shame when she doesn't get that. But I don't think Greta Gerwig is going to suffer for a lack of nominations through the years.
Well, I agree, but I also beg to differ on this one, because I have to say, This was one of the most complete, and I haven't seen 1917 yet. So in fairness, that's coming out
we
here.
are very much looking forward to seeing that.
So, just to, give that context, but it was such a complete movie, so fulfilling in so many ways. That is what a great filmmaker does. So I hope she doesn't, I hope she keeps on.
Yeah, I think she certainly will. She's quite young, and she's made what has been a widely acclaimed film, and justifiably so, carries a great message, good performances way down the line in this one, 10, 12, 14 deep. As I mentioned, the film looks good. It was shot entirely in the Concord, Massachusetts area, which is where this story was originally set, even down to the person who Joe, as the author, goes to try and sell the book, is a very twinkle in the eye, interesting character, was gruff and rejecting her, sort of. Even those little details were quite clever.
Fabulous. Love doing this with you, Danny. Can't wait for the next moment.
The next moment comes after our break, and that will be a contemporary look at women and the challenges they face and the empowerment they can try to bring upon themselves. It's Bombshell. We'll talk about that one next on Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jayne on the Reasonably Irreverent podcast.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Easton Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Easton Roofing?
Well, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way, and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice regardless of profit.
Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyKlinkScale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Welcome back to Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday, presented by Cinematic Visions, and our first edition of Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jayne. I'm Danny Klinkscale. That's Jane Seaman sitting over there. You can't see her, but you can hear her.
Hi, everybody.
And that's a good thing. We're going to continue with today's effort, talking about Bombshell, the movie out late last year now. And it is another film that looks at the challenges that women face, this time in the workplace, this time in very contemporary times. The film is set just before the first presidential debates back in 2015, rolling into 2016, and Roger Ailes and the atmosphere at Fox News. First of all, I would imagine that people who like Fox News are not going to attend this movie in all likelihood, so I don't know if it really matters whether they feel like it would be unfair or whatever. Maybe they did it out of curiosity. I don't know. The film, according to most, adheres pretty closely to the facts, but there's a certain element that of whether it's accurate or not, Fox News just isn't going to come off very well in this particular enterprise.
Well, what's interesting to me is having lived in New York, Boston, London, Chicago, when you're in the higher stress, higher competitive markets, especially at that level of the broadcast industry news, the stakes are really high. And I've seen this kind of behavior throughout my career when I was in opera. So I wasn't surprised at all about this. It was fabulous to watch. You know, the Bombshells were there. Charlize Theron playing Megyn Kelly. Oh, my God. And Margot Robbie, who may be the most beautiful woman on screen at the moment. So there were bombshells going off both visually and in the truth of what actually happened.
Charlize Theron plays Megyn Kelly. Nicole Kidman plays Gretchen Carlson. Those obviously are real-life characters. Margot Robbie plays a fictional character, Kayla Pospisil, a very ambitious young lady who wants to, from a born-again Christian background, who wants to succeed on air. She is brought to Fox News as somebody who was in some kind of a writing or production role. It was kind of difficult to tell exactly what she was doing at first, but she's very ambitious, and her tale is the one that sort of pieces things together because she is the young person who has not yet made it, who is the one that Roger Ailes will put his hooks into and use the ways that he pressured women all along in his career, but she is the up-to-date and modern version of it, and Gretchen Carlson is the person who is going to be the first one who is going to try to blow the whistle on this whole thing after she's fired by Fox News.
Nicole Kidman plays her.
Right, as Nicole Kidman plays her. And but the real centerpiece of this movie is Charlize Theron. She worked very hard at looking like Megyn Kelly. She kind of looks a little bit like her to begin with, but got her speech pattern down particularly well, which is a little bit difficult. There's a slight speech impediment that Megyn Kelly has, and she got that almost perfectly. But at the beginning, there's a fourth wall that brings us into Megyn Kelly's world through Charlize Theron. She's talking to the audience. That will go away eventually as the film progresses. But I think that might have been a way to make the character a little more approachable. These are not necessarily, in Megyn Kelly and Gretchen Carlson, as portrayed by the two great actresses, really very likable characters. There is sympathy and likability for Kayla Pospisil with Margot Robbie playing her. So there's different things being done by three excellent actresses.
You know, I think that's very true. You could see even in Margot's character the ambitions of these women. They wouldn't be there if they didn't already have something unique to offer. But unfortunately, has stood the test of time. Looks are everything, especially in the TV news business. And it's what was really telling to me and what was great to see is there was a character that Kate McKinnon plays that really shows that there are people from all walks of life working in all different environments, even at Fox News, who can see this stuff happening, and they feel like they have to keep their mouth shut about it. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in the movie was between Kate and Margot Robbie's character, which really unveils a lot of what Margot's having to deal with in order to feel like the only way to get noticed was to sleep with the boss. Who knew? Or
sort of not sleep with the boss, but do things with the boss that are completely inappropriate, and she would end up performing the one thing that he always wanted the most, as a matter of fact. John Lithgow plays Roger Ailes, who has a long and distinguished history as far as being a political kingmaker, and certainly that's pointed out in the film. And he's somebody who took the fact that television news obviously always has given us attractive people presenting the news. I mean, that's part of the deal. But they put it on steroids and took it to another level with women wearing short skirts. They were expected to have them shorter and shorter, lots of legs, bold colors. His recurring mantra was, this is a visual medium. He used that when he attempted to seduce the women as well. So certainly there's a lot going on here.
You know, what was I'm not surprised about, which really still sad to me, is he had somehow told him and accepted this in himself for such a long time that he just thought that was part of life, that he was allowed and it was appropriate for him to be able to do this for all of these years. And that's going on still. It's never going to stop. But it's fascinating to see, a national organization of this stature finally allow this kind of thing to unravel. And it took a lot of guts from these women. I mean, shocking guts from Nicole Kidman's character Gretchen Carlson. I mean, kudos to her.
And of course, there are many undercurrents in this film, and many things that will cause you to question the characters who, to carry a film, people want there to be a certain likability factor that comes through. But for instance, Nicole Kidman, as Gretchen Carlson, has long held these frustrations about how she was approached and had to rebuff. She rebuffed the advances of Roger Ailes and others, and it's Roger Ailes is the singular figure as far as the worst behavior, but the entire atmosphere of sexual harassment certainly pervades the entire workplace here. But she did not act on it until she was fired. Charlize Theron let Gretchen Carlson sort of twist in the wind for a long time. Margot Robbie had to decide eventually whether she was just going to basically throw away the ambitions that she had to join in as well. I do have to put some very good kudos to two other unlikable characters. John Lithgow harumphed his way around wonderfully.
This
as
guy
Roger
I
Ailes.
cannot forget. I can't stop thinking about him, and I think it has to do with he has a way of embodying a character that it isn't necessarily overtly naturalistic or realistic, but he embodies the character so much you can't take your eyes off him. You can't forget him. In fact, I just keep thinking about him, which is really, really odd because, boy, does he look bad.
He does
but
look
he was
bad,
so good in this character.
And he's very obsessed with looks in general, pointing out a couple of times when people are questioning him about these sexual harassment charges, which eventually do explode as a bombshell. Well, I didn't always look like this. It isn't so inconceivable that these women would be attracted to me. And he also has a willing co-conspirator in his wife. Now, she either doesn't know or just decides not to think about the fact that he has been doing this all along and just calls him salty and whatever. But a completely unlikable character who seems like somewhat of a dimwit for not, seeing through her husband's facade, but being supportive in a strong way. That's a difficult part to play, and Connie Britton did a good
Danny,
job of it.
I've got my thoughts on this. I really think that the Roger Ailes, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, they do this because the boys' club has been getting away with it, and they're all winking at each other, and it's a game for them. And it's accepted and it's expected of them to do this. And so that's part of their whole power process. And it's been happening forever. And it'll be curious to see how the whole Me Too movement, there's so many things that have been coming out now. And I'm grateful. I think it's sad. I just think this is actually sad because, flirting's okay. Natural flirting with people when it's not maliciously intended is a normal fact of life. But unfortunately, men like Roger Ailes create an environment where we're not supposed to have any sort of back and forth with the opposite sex at all until we marry them and then go to bed. We can't actually have any flirtation anymore. I find that rather sad. So hopefully, eventually, there'll be some balance of common ground here.
Right. The Roger Ailes of the world have kind of wrecked the fun, as it were, for at least this period of time when sometimes maybe there's an overcorrection in any situation like this. Some people see the Me Too movement that way. I don't necessarily think it's gotten to there yet, but that's a discussion for another day. This film had many strengths. It was really carried by the performances. The story everybody pretty much knew. To me, the only maybe downside of the film, directed by Jay Roach, who was really known more for films comedy films that he has made in the past, but has recently made a couple of more serious films. He does a good job here. Everything is bright. You need this topic, because of the topic, I think bright scenes, bright colors, everything else is a positive to make people have a little better feeling as we're going down this miserable rat hole. So I believe he did a good job, except there are a lot of characters in this film that are real people. And they make short appearances in the film, and they seemingly, to me, tried a little bit too hard to either make them look just like they were, or they come off being a little bit cartoonish.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, it's funny, though. I kind of differ with you on this brightness. I saw the brightness of this as more of attempting to show the sterility and the lack of humanity in the office. There was something about that whole brightness of everything. And then it was even bright in his office, which was really weird because it was a den of we all know what. And what was really, really even worse is his assistant, I'm going to use the word secretary here, and that's exactly what she was actually she was seeing it all and not saying a word either. And she was of another era.
Right. This is an older woman who had worked for Roger Ailes forever and a day, and I think she just probably was from a generation that felt like, well, this is just the way the world works. What am I going to do? This is a good job. I know what's going on, and that's just everyday activity for her.
What was interesting to me, and I've obviously never been in these offices, but there was a claustrophobic feel. No one felt like they could say anything because the desks are so close to each other. Even Megyn Kelly, as she was walking around throughout this whole thing, Charlize's character, there was this feeling of no one can say a word. And that's just a really sad state of affairs if you have to work in an environment like that.
And of course, in the end, Gretchen Carlson's acts of bravery create a team. 22 women at least end up making allegations against Roger Ailes. He eventually is fired. Bill O'Reilly eventually takes the fall subsequently as well. He's only a superfluous character in this particular film. So I guess one of the things that is not even spoken a little bit in the post titles is the fact that Fox News, and there is a kind of a nice sighting as Malcolm McDowell plays Rupert Murdoch, who fires them at the end. But Fox News is just, they weren't undercut, damaged in any way, shape, or form by this, even though their kingmaker, Roger Ailes, the person who created this whole thing, it just steamrolled along after, and does to this day, even after the fall of Roger Ailes. Bill O'Reilly, the person who ran the show, and the person who really made Fox News in many ways.
It's weird, isn't it? I would think potentially they could have made Fox News and actually another character in this, but that was rather superfluous to the actual thing that was going on. And I'm not sure whether that was because it's happening in so many more places than just Fox News. We know this. It's just interesting that was the platform to base this on.
Yeah, and your level of annoyance or whatever about the political message of this particular film is just basically going to depend on what side of the aisle you're on or what your politics are, because certainly, and in some cases obviously rightly so, but you could do it at MSNBC or anywhere else, but this story is about Fox News and sexual harassment, which wasn't as pervasive at other places. Not to say it certainly didn't exist, but there were pot shots taken here at Fox News, characters talking about what they had to do to present the news in a certain way. So it certainly is not just about the sexual harassment issue. It's not apolitical in any way, but I thought it was a well-done and important film, and I thought it was good work. But from a movie maker or a cinema viewer standpoint, the way you enjoy this film, per se, is through the great performances of the top characters.
Yeah, absolutely. They made this film. I think part of it is because it's so one-dimensional in one office. Maybe that's part of it, is that there's no expansiveness other than in this office, in the claustrophobia of the office. Well, there are a few shots actually when Gretchen, Nicole Kidman's, we see her once she's left and she's watching this all unfold, and she really has it's almost like she's done with the trial, and she's not quite sure where this is going to end up. And so her relief when other women came out and stood with her is an amazing moment, and hopefully that's happening more often.
And great bonus points to Kate McKinnon. We know her from Saturday Night Live. She's obviously a very talented and fun person on that particular show and plays a wide variety of characters, but this is an opportunity. Her character is not funny. I mean, she's not, I mean, she is playing a serious character. She's a lesbian and a liberal working in Fox News. That's where she got the job. Now she can't get a job anywhere else because she works at Fox News.
You know,
and she is not, I'm sure she's a fictional character as well, but she did very, very well. And this I would think would lead to great things for her.
Yeah, I can't say enough about how many minutes, not that many minutes on the screen, and you were immediately engaged. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say she almost created a completely different tone. And I'm not sure if that was her doing or the director's doing. It was like a different film for me the minute she came on, and I was like, I wanted to see more of that, but there was a good reason why you didn't see more of that character. But brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
It was a great construct in a movie that certainly had its flaws, but those flaws are not at the top of the marquee, because Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, Margot Robbie, and John Lithgow, all outstanding in Jay Roach's Bombshell. And that'll wrap up this first edition of Reconcilable Differences with Danny and Jayne. My partner in crime.
We didn't have too many disagreements.
No, well, there was one good one there in the middle. But anyway, we did see somewhat eye to eye in this. We generally see eye to eye on films, but not completely. Other issues we'll see in the future.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Exactly, on Reconcilable Differences at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast on Arts and Lifestyle Wednesday. It's presented by Cinematic Visions.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like
Easton Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Easton Roofing, where integrity matters.
We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.